So, hello and welcome to Futurepreneurs once again. This is our last workshop, but on the bright side, in 2 weeks, we will hear some pretty cool sustainable business ideas. If you're watching our workshop for the first time, I just want to inform you that all of our training material is free and available on our website, futurepreneurs.eu. So make sure to check that out. And our final event, Demo Day, will be held in 2 weeks on May 13. It will be a virtual event as well. And I am inviting all guest viewers to take part in our wild cards competition. All you have to do is submit your sustainable business idea until this Sunday, and you might win a chance to pitch at the final event and compete for the prizes alongside our current participants. So if you're interested, you can find more information about that on our Facebook page. And now I would like to introduce the lecturer of this workshop. Tomas Martūnas is a founding partner of Iron Wolf Capital, which is technology-focused seed-stage venture capital fund operating in Baltics. So during this online workshop, Tomas will share his insights about pitching to the investors, do's and don'ts, and teach you how to pitch like a pro. Quick note, if you will have any questions, feel free to type them in a Zoom chat below, and Tomas will answer those at the end of the workshop. So Tomas, please share a screen and the virtual stage is yours.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Started sharing, so hopefully you all see what I'm sharing. So today I'll try to pass my know-how regarding what should be included in the pitch and how the venture capitalists and we and others look at the startups and what is important to do before you approach investors. So in short about us, we are around 20 million early stage fund with the 4 partners, 2 offices, Vilnius and London. One of the partners, Victor used to raise almost 40 million for their Y-Plan ventures. And another partner, Žygis and Kasparas, have the extensive experience in the private equity, meaning selling and buying companies. And myself, quite a lot early stage deals done and some ventures built and capital raised, and some of the companies getting bankrupt. For us, and I think for the most of early stage investors, the most important things is that first of all is a strong founders team. The second is that you quite understand the competition space around you and you have the product with USP or unique business model that you're targeting, not Lithuania or maybe Latvia, Estonia, Baltic markets, but you're targeting the really big markets. And for us, maybe for angel investors and for accelerators, it's not critical. We would like to see some first traction, meaning that you're not only doing great job on product development, but you also understand that the only way to survive is to do sales eventually. Yeah. And we support founders by a lot of things. So working together, as I say, we're going to the contract of 7 to 10 years of marriage. And we hope that that contract will be able to extend after the founders exiting, so they're jumping in as investors in the fund, or we finance another venture of that founder. So I think it's really important to understand to saving your time in terms of pitching, in what stage and what you need to have prepared. Yeah. So I would say at the very beginning, then you start, meaning you have idea. So I always say at that point of time, even it's really fantastic idea with a glass of beer or with a glass of wine, as I see that it's a lot of ladies join, or maybe now is another trend is a glass of smoothie. You created an idea. So it works zero without execution. And most of the startups actually die in those 3 months, because then you start aligning the plans, splitting the functions, you see that team is not getting aligned, or some people execute and others don't, and most of them die. So then there is a statistics that 99% of startups die, so they die in here. Then it comes, I call it pre-seed, meaning then there are tons of materials of the best pitch decks, seed pitch decks, which you can learn from. So then you build some prototype. Now it's so many tools, you can do it with a very really fractional investment. You create the business plan, and then you can actually approach business angels, accelerators. There is a MITA or other grants competitions. So usually you can get up to 30,000 euros, which for 1-2 founders is enough to start and to kick off. And that FFF stands for Friends, Full and Family. Yeah. So this is usually still not the funds game. It's, as I say, business angels, and we do have in Lithuania Litban and Verslo Angelų Fondas. So it's local players and accelerators. We have 70 ventures and startup wise guys, and a lot of, as I said, government grants and contests, the same as the Futurepreneurs. So you can win and you can kick off your company. Then you approach the seed investor as us, or other Lithuanian seed or Baltic investors. Usually you need to be ready with your product development. Maybe you have some IP protection strategy, or you did some monetization test and you already know what works, what didn't, and you have clear go-to-market plans. So at that stage, if we're not talking about the US or UK, but here in Baltics, usually the funding rounds account between, I would say, 300 to 1 million, depending on the company, ambitious and other things, and growth rate. So this is how much you can raise at that stage. And of course, if you are successful, then it comes alliances of VC, or it's few investors usually co-invest together, or for some working capital you can go to the banks already, or to some credit insurance institution, and usually the rounds goes 1 million plus. But what does it mean for you as a shareholder of the company? Yeah, so as a shareholder of the company, then you think it looks like that at the beginning it's a nice zero for everyone. Yeah. But if you attract the seed investment or the angel investment, usually you can do the same as seed, just scratch 1 0. Yeah. Because usually angels gives like 30,000, I don't know, for 10% or something like that. So it's let's assume that this is the same view as for seed. So what does it mean? The investor believing in you gives you 200,000 euros. Usually he asks to slice a SOP, and the SOP means for employee stock option pool. Everyone understands that you're going to need to hire new persons, and this labor market, to hire new persons, you actually going to need to mix the salary with the equity, part of the equity, and usually it depends on the performance, some indicators. So it means that if you are 2 or 3 founders, your stock value becomes valuable of 700,000 euros, which is quite significant amount for anyone, I would say. But of course, it's still everything on paper. Yeah, and the same continues with the Series A. If you do your valuation raises, you still have the control of your company, meaning like 56%, and if you incorporate your employees, so you have with those employees more than 60% of equity, and other investor shares around 35%, and you all main founders become paper millionaires. But of course you need to execute. So this is, I would say, the path which we in Lithuanian scene haven't seen so many cases. Maybe on 2 hands we can calculate who went through that path, and only couple cases who went even further with the Series B and others. So let's not talk about it. Let's focus on here, on those rounds and what is important. So what pitch decks elements we have? So this is like an agenda. So I will now go one by one. What is important, and later on this material will be shared. So use it for your needs. So first of all is you need to start with the clarity of purpose. Yeah, means that, you know, what is your business mission, why you are doing that, and it has to be very simple. And understanding why you do that, and if you're able to write it on the backside of your business card, then it means that you have the good vision why you're doing that company. It looks very simplified, but believe me, if you'll start doing it, it is not so simple as it seems from the first glance. So this is just, you know, the which you can read it yourself. You know, the Tony's quote on the Zappos philosophy. Yeah, so I will not be reading it. You can read it yourself, and it makes very simple. At the same time, he understands what is essential. Yeah, and essential is the emotion which people have out of your product or service, not the product or service itself. Yeah. Then the second thing is, of course, is the problem and pain you see. So the questions which you need to answer yourself, you need to understand what is the real pain of customer and who are those target customers. Yeah, and we call it usually digital persona. So you need to describe as deep as possible. If it is small and medium client, meaning in which country, how many employees it has, do it sit in the office or no, what's their revenue size, yeah, what's their margin, how much they can afford to pay for such a solution or such a problem solving. So you need actually to have very deep understanding, because usually what we see in the startups that startups finish with, I don't know, we target everyone from all small and medium-sized enterprises. You know, so it's kind of good answer, but it's not enough. Yeah. So you need to understand very deep that segment, and then you'll understand their problems or problem areas which they're facing. And if you do that, then your solution will be actually really value add. And of course, then you are able to understand with whom you're competing. Are you competing with the, I don't know, old-fashioned way of working, or you're competing with another competitor, so you're competing with somebody else? Yeah. So describing the problem is important, and what we see a lot then pitching, the people usually being so involved in the product or the solution they created that sometimes they start forgetting the problem which they're solving. And then you start asking, they start explaining the solution, but we understand that solution, but does the problem really exist? And I always try to give a simple example that we go to the dentist only then, I mean, some of the people go from time to time, yeah, and the wealthy people going, I don't know, twice a year or, you know, every quarter, to be sure that everything is fine. But most of the people and most of your customers actually go to the dentist and they really feel pain. And then there is no pain, nobody is in a rush to buy a product. So it's really important understanding that. And I think this crisis of COVID-19 also shows that for all the products which are not needed for your daily life, the life will be even harder versus the products which really creates value. And value in the business usually can be created. I'm not talking about sustainable businesses. Yeah, it can be, and other things, but usually it's either bringing new revenues or either saving costs. And this is if you are CEO of the company, you understand that those besides your people and taking care about them and your clients and taking care about them, those two lines of revenues and costs are the most important for any CEO of any company. So if you can show that direct impact on one on another, or some reference give of your customers, then it will be more easy to sell the solution and to explain the problem. Then you offer it painkillers, yeah. So I touched it a little bit already. So you need to show how that problem can be solved by your solution. The best, I always say, and what we miss seeing some pitch decks, founders sometimes find quite hard to explain the value add of your product. Yeah, it's, I would say, it misses some numeric numbers, what impact it can give on the company's financials. Yeah, it helps something. Yeah, but more metric you have, it increases revenues by how much percent. Or so it's really important knowing the problem to show how you solve it, and then to measure it in terms of data, either time saved, which is multiplied by salary level of such a person's and times X persons working in that company and multipliable by 12 months. So you can derive to the, let's say, return on investment, which could be very easy sellable to anyone, yeah, and for investor as well. So problem, and then very straightforward about the solution. So there is no need to list 100 functions of your product. Sometimes it's enough to show 3 or 1 to 3 screens and addressing, and the rest we all understand that there are much more features and important, but you don't need to show it. Then you pitch investor. Then usually it is missed, but it's very important to understand why now. And why now is about things, and you need to show the historical evolution, yeah, of your category. Let's imagine that you, I don't know, created the idea of mobile game 15 years ago. Then no mobile apps were in place, yeah. So that idea kind of good, yeah, and the market is moving towards that direction. Just you're a little bit too early, because there are no still smartphones on the market, yeah. So you need to show the historical evolution. If something is developing and now you see that a lot of people have, I don't know, VR handsets or smartphones with certain feature, and you actually play on that feature, or a lot of companies already using some tool and you are providing some improvement on that tool. So showing that, it would give you an answer, why now? Why it was not yesterday good time, or why it's not too early? Because that success, besides the good product and good team, is actually about being with the right idea at the right time. And you need to answer yourself also the question, not to investor, but for yourself, why solution haven't been built before, yeah? And you can Google and look if there were attempts to build it and why then successful. So you need to invest some time studying the history and understanding what happened with such a companies. And eventually, what is important, and I like probably to separate companies in 2 main categories. I call it serve demand and create demand. Is the one which is serve demand is that there is a clear need of something. Let's say that for COVID-19 there was a clear need of masks. So if you can provide masks now, yeah, and solve the problem now, then you can do business. Create demand is, for example, the ultraviolet lamps to address COVID-19. So it's also solve the problem, and it's also kind of, have the demand for it, but you need to create the demand. You need to explain for the people why I need lamp, those lamps, pros and cons, and it's optional. I mean, I can put in my, for example, restaurant or my shop or my office, or I can live without it. So this is very simple clarification of, and those which are, I would say, serve demand, it means that you will be able, if you tackle right timing, you're able to sell it fast and much cheaper. If you're creating demand, usually for the small companies, it means that you're gonna need to create your brand. And investment in the brand, it is costly. And usually it's cost much more than you estimate at the very beginning of your business plan. Important part of your pitch deck is about the market potential. So there are definitions which you can Google in more details. They're called TAM, SAM, SOM, which means that total available market, service available market, and service obtainable market. What's about those markets? So if you have some solution and you start selling, just giving an example from US. So in the world, there are certain amount of companies then who can pay for your solution or for such solution. So it gives you total available market. You say that you're gonna start from US, and US, I don't know, is 1/10 of the world. So you see that the service available market becomes much smaller. Now, service obtainable market, you start from maybe certain stages and you micro segment customers, and from certain customer segments, you're only focusing, and then it gives you the view on the service or market which actually you can tackle now. So then we look from the investment perspective. We're interesting to see as big markets as possible. And why it's so? And of course, it's what we usually like, that the founders do some exercise and based on the digital persona, deep understanding how they're gonna be evolving from SOM to SAM to TAM. So you need to have the understanding how you're gonna be moving forward, but you need to understand and at the same time what players are playing in here. And then it gives you an understanding and possibility or to find the gap for the startup. So if the market is big enough, it gives you a possibility to do a lot of experiments, meaning that you started with one of the US states, you failed. I don't know, the customer feedback was not so good. You learned your lessons. You improve the product, you change your pricing, and then it allows you to move forward with learned mistakes. If the market is very small, you did few mistakes and the market is closes, and then the startup is closes. So recommendation, if you want to play with venture capital, or if you want to employ the venture capital investment money for your growth acceleration, then you need to tackle the big markets. And our practice and what we like, then we say that go-to-market strategy is that it's not only on theory to put that we will be doing this and that. Usually as a startup, you can start hiring people or selecting people now. You don't need to wait for anyone to do it. You can, change your remuneration, you can try, you can experiment, and this is what investors actually are waiting for you. Because there are startups which moves and do a lot of iterations, and there are startups who don't move and say, we didn't have any money, so we didn't do anything. So, and this is probably the separation of creative founders and the, I don't know, old-fashioned, let's call it, founders who no money, then we're not moving. So it is really important that you understand how to expand, and you need to understand, or at least most of our fund team members don't have the big belief that or there are not many also the good cases when, especially generating sales, people sit in Lithuania and generate sales globally. Yeah? Usually you need to open the company to hire local people to enter that market. Yeah? And you need to have the local know-how. And some of the founders, we see that they don't realize that. Yeah? And going to the market, it's not only the founder sitting in the plane or sitting in the car and going to the market until it starts, but at the same time it's hiring the proper people which can help you to penetrate that market. Then competition and your USP. So we, and probably most of the funds, like us in the pitch deck, usually it's like the chart where you show that, all the competitors is somewhere below, yeah, and I'm the one as a star in the upper right angle. So this is what we see, but then you start questioning, so what is your USP? It becomes very hard for startups to formulate. Yeah, sometimes, yeah, we're cheaper, but cheaper is not USP. Any competitor changing price or giving the discounts is able to compete with you. So it's important for you to have in few dimensions. So we usually provide the template which gives you dimension to study your competitor from the functional point of view, from the funding point of view, from the employees point of view, from the client amount point of view, and from the product features point of view. So having that holistic view on the competition from all those views gives you an understanding how many competitors are maybe few steps above you, who lost the game, and how fast competitors are moving, and does your plan estimates that you will be moving in the same speed or much slower. So having that view is really gives you a lot of insights. If you study properly and invest in this homework enough time, not just formally giving for some investor just the feedback. The same time, there are so many nice tools like, Capterra or Trustpilot, where you actually can go and see, and it compares you by the competitor side by side, by functions, by pricing, by other things. And this is important to do because what investors don't like, then you come and you selectively show, 2 to 3 startups with whom you're competing. They don't have any functions and you have all those functions. And investor or investor analyst goes to the Google, he Googles and he finds another 5 competitors. And then you start a very long conversation why you haven't included that. And and why you were so selective. So I really recommend you, if doing it, think about that somebody will definitely gonna do due diligence on that, and rather be prepared and do it yourself beforehand, before you approach the investors. Yeah, not having just a nice slide with logos, but also very deep Excel or whatever. Probably Excel is the best tool in my opinion. Yeah. Comparison, as I talked, by those all categories: employees, investment, founding days, growth speed, countries you're approaching, and the product feature and pricing. Then the product roadmap. Yeah, so we all understand, and you invest early, is that product addresses some few things, or it's MVP, which solves some of the problem of the client, but at the same time it misses still a lot of features which needs to be done. Yeah, either integrated or either developed on the client needs. So you need also to thinking about how fast you need to develop the product, not to lose the competition, because you see the competitors features versus your features. You understand that competitor is not standing still. So you need, then you're raising to show how you're going to be moving forward. If you, I don't know, mobile app, you started from iOS, then you're going to be doing and going to Android. Maybe you're going to implement on the Mac computers, then maybe you're going to launch on the web, and so on and so on. So you need certain functions. So you need to show not too detailed, but at least some of the big or important product improvement features, which would allow you to go to the next level of competition. And to implement those features, you need usually significant IT resources to launch, which means that you're going to need some of the money which you're asking for to be invested in that product development area. Then in the early stage, I would say it's probably 50 or maybe 60% of the decision is about the team. So if it is one-man company, usually you're gonna get no from the investor. So if it is 2 or 3 founders, it's already okay, or I would say it's good. At the same time, funds and everyone likes that it's, I call it A-level founders, yeah. And by psychology, that A-level people attract A-level team. It means that if you are, let's say, B or C level, usually people who are not, confident in themselves, they tend to select the people who are much, with lower competences than they are, and it comes from psychology, as they feel threat that those people gonna overcome them. And the people who are usually experienced, they feel okay hiring people who are smarter than they are. They're smarter in all fields or in some fields. So smart shareholders usually hire CEO who are much smarter than they are. And this is important to understand. And if you feel that you are not A-level team, then you can, understanding your weaknesses of the team, you can attract A-level advisors who can uplift you, who can open you their network. And that can be done by agreeing some shares remuneration. Most of the people who experience and have a lot of money, they actually don't need money or don't need few hundred or €1,000 from you. They're gonna advise you if they see that your idea rings the bell or it has some ties with their beliefs. So, and it's important to invest, think at the best people in that field, in where you're creating the product, and try to attract them as advisors, agreeing the different remuneration strategies. Yeah. And also what is important is your as a team story, how you got together, do you know about each other? Yeah. Are you just, starting and knowing yourself for a month and you started that, met in the hackathon, or how you split the functions, and are you matching, are you having fights? Are you drinking beer together? So this is important, yeah, because it is the team in which you invest, and either you feel that the team has the capability to execute or you don't. And this is one of the important components which you need to tackle when you approach investors. And of course, the best team, well, we say that is compiled by 3 main categories. We call it hustler, hacker, and designer, which means that somebody needs to be really entrepreneur, meaning, trying to pitch and sell. It should be somebody who is building the product and understanding it very on the deep level. Let's call it CTO. And it needs somebody who understands the design, or this is oversimplified, meaning the usually digital marketing. Yeah. So product, because usually design sells. So you need to understand it quite well, how to sell it in current digital world. So having those three functions, I would say you are ready to go to the investor. If you are missing those functions, I really recommend you to have at least some candidates and understanding whom you want to hire, and be ready to split the shares with those people, because any startup, those three roles are the most important for you to move forward fast. And if those people fulfilling those roles are the founders, it's much more easy than to employ some of the key people, because employed people, if something goes bad, they usually leave the ship. Founders, if something goes back, they usually stay in the ship and stay to survive. And if the ship drowns, they drown together, but not going one by one out of the ship. So this is very important. And you need to look at that part of your pitch very seriously. Don't put it, I don't know, 3 pictures with LinkedIn links and name and surname. It doesn't give anything to answer. Yeah. If you worked in some companies, give some examples, write some, I don't know, 1 sentence about you, because, you know, some of the investors, you need to understand, from this slide will formulate their view, either they're interesting to go to all other slides and look it seriously or not. So this slide needs to show your experience, and investor needs to get interest to proceed talking to you. So then you look at that slide, think about it, what you presented, because as I say, in some slides we see name, surname, and picture, and they're all CEO, CTO, and what you expect that we're gonna be going one by one, Googling your experience. Some of them are on LinkedIn, some of them not. So if you look at that, and some of the investors and analysts just drops it, yeah. So you need to prepare well this slide. Business model. So business model is eventually about how you're going to be making money. Yeah. So try to keep it simple. Focus on 1, max 2 revenue streams, because sometimes we find that, you know, we can make money out of this and that and this and that and something else. Yeah. So it becomes very complicated. So it has to be very simple. We're going to take, I don't know, 10% cut from the marketplace. It's clean and simple. B2B SaaS, we are selling, it's monthly recurrent revenues of so much, and our cost is of the server is so much. This is our 90% profit margin. Then it's very simple, yeah, for any one investor. But it's important to understand how you're going to be making money. There are always exceptions, like the Facebook, you know, that you are collecting customers, growing them, you know, by millions month over month, and then you say, somehow I'm going to figure out how to make money out of those people. But this is rather exception than the standard way of doing business for most of the startups. Yeah, and then financial plan. So financial plan, usually the investor wants to see at least for two years. If you already started and you have statistics and you have some traction, so I really recommend you to put, if it even was going through the hills and going ups and downs, but to put historical, at least a year or half a year metrics, because it also gives an understanding how many experiences you had in that startup. Yeah. And then of course you extrapolate for 2 years moving forward, and it's the best is that it's month on month for 2 years. We all understand that financial plan usually is about, for first year, you probably take it like 50-50 as granted. And for the next year, you understand that, probability of that will happen is around 20%. So usually venture capital is discounted, and also venture capitalist likes then you not look at or not read a lot of article that, in Silicon Valley, somebody raised a seed round of 10 million. So then I'm also raising 10 million. So I really recommend you to stick with those amounts which I started and shared with you in the presentation, based on the market maturity and based on the country salary, because to live in Silicon Valley and to live in Vilnius, it's two different things. Yeah, and therefore the salary level differs by few times, and at the same time the money which needs to be invested to develop the NHIA startup is also differs by few times. And this gives also from the capital efficiency advantage for any startup. But what I wanted to say that investor therefore likes that you took some little money. At the same time, it's good for the founder team as you took money, you moved forward, then you can increase your company valuation. So you need to take money for 12 or 18 month runaway, meaning that 12 to 18 months you can survive and you need to execute. Yeah. And then you go with increased valuation based on your execution and what you were promising to early investors and your result, and then moving forward. So investors like discipline, focus, and that your capital raise and next rounds and increased valuation happens on your results, not promises. Fundraising. So you need to know how much for your Excel build business plan you need money. Investor wants to see in that plan where you're going to be using it. Are you going to be the extending IT team, or are you going to be buying ads and putting to marketing, or are you going to be hiring salespeople? So you need to show in the simplified manner where those money going to be going, and at the same time, investors like what you're going to achieve with it. Yeah. So if you say that we're raising 300K and we're gonna hire 5 sales team, hire another 5 developers, and gonna invest something into the marketing, and show the split in the pie chart, and you say we're gonna raise revenues from 20K to 100K, and do this important feature for the product, and have 1,000 customers. So you provide free metrics which I assess and say, it seems this is gonna be efficient capital allocation for the company growth. So that you need to show in the very simplified way. And eventually, which we at some point, especially for the investments in which we lead, not co-invest, we like talking to founders, answer one important question. So imagine everything goes well as planned. So who you are in 5 years. So try to dream it. Yeah. In 5 years, you're becoming what? 5 million revenue doing company with 1 million profit, 50 million revenue, global leader, global number 3, local leader, European level number 2. You are in Lithuania and UK only. So think about it. It's really important, because then you create the vision and you as a leader share that vision with your people, and you attract founders who share that vision with you. So usually it helps you, then it is a hard time to remind yourself why you are doing it. If the purpose of the company is only money making, then it becomes very hard, then the hard time comes. And in the startup, hard times will come tens of times. This is, I can promise you. I haven't seen the startup who did not struggle. And the only thing which can help you is your vision, which gonna, as Steve Jobs says, it can pull you, and it will. So try to sit down, quietly meditating, and try to find that answer for you, who you will become. So to summarize what you need to have, then you go to investor. So you need to have the pitch deck, which is fine-tuned. Look at the pitch decks. I mean, there are tons of bad examples who managed to raise capital, having really, let's call it, not the best looking presentation, but at the same time, your presentation, the style of it, design of it, gives an understanding of how you pay attention to details, how well you analyzed, how well you work for it, and it gives also some understanding about, a lot of aesthetic and other things which are important when you assessing. Then you need to talk in the investor's language, that if the investor starts asking, what is your valuation, what is your pre-money valuation, and you start saying, what is that? Or can you send me your cohorts? Or what is your LTV? Or what is your ACV? And then you're in the SaaS business and you start collapsing your eyes and like, what he is talking about. So I really recommend to Google and to get prepared in the area in which you work. You understand the terminology and the benchmark on which company to company is compared in your field. So you need to know those basic terms of the investor. There are not so many, being honest, but the same as if you will not know the terms and you will be sailing the ship, you will be having hard time doing it or assisting the captain. So if you are going to the journey and conversation with investor, I really recommend to invest a little bit understanding that key terminology of the venture capital. Provide numbers, as I say, talk in numbers. If you do research, then, show from reliable sources, not we did the quick research of 50 of my friends and, 48 of them said that they're going to use the product. So look at the reliable sources. And of course, important to say that the decision making, especially in the seed stage, the process takes from 4 to 6 months from the day then investor says, let's talk, seeing your pitch, till the day then the money arrives into your account. Because first of all, investors don't like to invest in points. They like to invest in curves. So they want to see your plan and what you did during that time. Then we were negotiating or discussing how well you are executing. So you need to understand that then you launch the fundraising. You actually need to be sure that the next 3 to 6 month plan, which you show to the investor while you're negotiating, you're going to execute 100%. Because if you start deviating, of course, you need to start building plan that you build it, that investor money arrives in 4-6 months. But those, what you promise to execute without investors' money, you need to execute. Because otherwise you will give the view of yourself as underperformer. Because if investor comes in 3 months and says, how did it go? Interesting how you're doing, and you're gonna say, I was planning to sell for 10,000 and I sold for 4,000. So understand that all your Excel which you built and send it to me, probably I need to discount by 9 times, yeah, and then I'm gonna see the real result, which you probably gonna be capable to meet. And last but not least, for the seed investors, and I even say for the accelerators, which I recently see, they like to see not nice PowerPoint and Excel and of course team behind, but they want to see some traction, meaning that your capability to sell. So I would say if you don't have neither some letters of intent or you sold anything, then don't go to the seed investors, rather focus on accelerators and business angels with co-investitions fund or something like that. And for the pitch, there are 4 important parts, yeah, as we talked, is the product, market, how big it is, and then the team, and of course everything what is related with finance. That's it from my side, what I wanted to share. Then I'll stop sharing and ready to take your questions.
So thank you, Tomas. That was really great. Let's give a couple of minutes for participants to write the questions if they have some. And I would like to ask you a couple of questions as well. So one of them is, how many pitches do you hear in a year or in a month?
Last year we reviewed more than 450. But I mean, the ones which, some of the pitches you open and reading from the letter, you understand that it's on the idea phase. So we don't take those into account. If you would take those into account, so probably it's going to be like, I don't know, 700.
Okay. And my second question was kind of related. How much time into the presentation does it usually take for you to understand if you are interested or not?
Hard to tell. I mean, I would say that reviewing the pitch or meeting the founders in some events or getting reference from the angel investors or from another fund or from some experienced entrepreneurs usually is the best source for you to motivate to meet, yeah, the people. So each of the funds have their verticals on which they focus. They have their understanding how much you have traction to have to start for them being interested. Some of them starts from, I don't know, 1,000-2,000 per month revenue, some of them from 10,000, some of them from 100,000. So you need also to understand that sometimes even good idea, but then attacking or going to the investor, which then you don't match those criteria, then investor just simply don't reply or they say no. Yeah. So I would say usually, to review it's up to probably to half an hour. But if it catches your attention, the team, their performance, executions, then or you got good reference for that team, then of course you're gonna invite to meet, or at those times you're gonna invite to talk. Then the next stage probably going to be asking you more deeper questions on performance KPIs plus the financial plan. So funds start investing time in understanding deeper. So if such things proceeds with a fund, then you probably can say that fund is interesting in your startup.
Okay, thank you. And I see another question from the audience. So Daugardas says, hello, Tomas. Thanks for your time. And
hello, Daugardas. Nice to see you.
And based on your experience, when it would be better to look for external investment and when focus on bootstrapping the company without investment?
There is a nice how to say, new definition of the startup. It's called Pegasus. It means the unicorn which were capable to become unicorn without external funding. Yeah, so you Daugardas probably work with one of such a startups. But what I wanted to say that the longer you go without capital, yeah, the better valuation you're going to receive. So that's for sure. At the same time, depending on your startup, you need to have feeling when you understand that without capital, you cannot show the great sales result. So therefore, I would say that then you need to take that approach, which I recommend. Take small amount of money and show how well you invested it, and then accelerate. Yeah, just take, I don't know, 50K from angel, show the result. At the same time, then you took money and formed the seed funds that, you know, I raised angel amount. I will come back in few months. I promise you I will deliver this and that, and then come back, you know, then just keep the funds updated. Yeah, because also one thing which we found with a lot of founders, that some of the founders, even for whom you expressed interest, you say, maybe it's too early. I only one Estonian founder from all those 450 companies who systematically on the monthly basis included investors who became interested, updating with how they're performing. So the communication, you need to understand that if the fund was interested, why don't you share what you did? Because, you know, if I will feel that you already reached the stage which I am interested in invest, and you maybe thought that, you know, I'm gonna be doing round in 2, 3, or 4 months, I will start discussion from myself by being proactive, and this is even much better for you as the founder, because it's not you approaching, but I am already showing interest that you already at the stage where I could consider investing. So I don't know. I hope Daugirdas answered your question. If not, then you know my phone. You can call me.
Yeah, and we have another question. Can you talk about your first pitch? So I don't know if the person asking about the first pitch you did or you heard, but okay, maybe we can talk.
Probably I did. Okay. About first pitches, you know, first I had the mobile entertainment company, so I bootstrapped. Then we started let's say, one of the startup was, I did the private kindergarten network. So the pitch for investor was, I would say, not according to existing standards, which we see now, yeah. But it was quite ambitious and quite realistic at the same time, and with extensive build Excel. But then I look at the PowerPoint which I built, it's a shame, yeah. And then another one which we did with couple founders, we did the social marketplace in Nigeria called Mobofree. Then I look at that pitch. I think pitch has tackled a lot of things. At the same time, for example, not understanding the philosophy of the investors that you need to try to become number one, number two, because you always, then you are in your, even the very niche area, you are number one, you're always going to get a much better valuation than you selling company or then you attracting capital. We were like going all around the world and investors asking, so which number you are in that market with such a metrics? You say, I'm here number 6, here number 8, but I'm overall growing. So now I understand why we got a lot of no's for that startup, because we were not focused, let's put it this way. Yeah, and we were not focused. I was doing other things, other founders were doing other things. So I learned a lot from my mistakes. So then I look at it, I see a lot of mistakes done, because of course back then there was no so many sources where you can Google. I mean, now it's so many in YouTube pitches, or you can find the best 100 pitch decks for seed investment. So just Google, invest time, and definitely you can learn a lot from the history and from the founders.
Okay, so we do not have more questions. So thank you, Tomas, once again for this great presentation. I'm sure that after this workshop, you will receive a lot of invitations to connect on social networks. And just a reminder that the recording of this workshop will be available on our Facebook and YouTube pages, as well as on our website, futurepreneurs.eu. So if you missed some part, you will be able to watch it again. So thank you for joining us today. Make sure to check out our wildcards competition and see you at the demo day. Goodbye.
Yeah. See you. Thank you, everyone.